Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time it is and wherever you're watching from. Let me know in the comments if you're checking this out on the replay, when you're checking it out and where you are. It's always good to know. Hi, I'm Duncan, and this is my latest video on cognitive biases. So this series explores a range of different cognitive biases, how they impact and affect us, what we can learn from them, and how understanding them better can lead us to make better decisions. Oh! And I just spilt my coffee. What a great way to start the live. Good morning, Katie. Good morning, Higgs. Yeah, I'm covered in coffee, but I'm going to carry on like a pro as if I'm not. So good morning, everyone. You know when you're having a debate with someone on Facebook and someone says something that you know is just inaccurate because you understand the science behind it, and which mug? That is the question, Alison. So yeah, and so what you do is you present the facts to them, maybe with some links and some information. You explain from your experience, your knowledge, why they're wrong, and then that person goes, oh, okay, fair enough, and completely changes their beliefs. You know when that happens? All the time? Oh wait, that doesn't happen, does it? No. In fact, when you present people with facts and informations that are contrary to their opinion and belief, sometimes it doesn't seem to make a lot of difference. Sometimes it seems that they almost become more certain in their beliefs and fight and argue back harder. So, good morning, Tristan. So, here's the thing. If it seems like that doesn't work, it's because it generally doesn't. And there's a whole different raft of reasons at play for that. But a big part of it is down to what's referred to as the backfire effect. So the backfire effect is the cognitive bias that we're focusing on today. One of the greatest examples of the backfire effect at play, and one of the reasons that it led to being studied and proposed as a bias, was a group of cultists who believed that the spaceship was coming to take them home on a particular date. And so they all went up to the top of this hill, ready, waiting, earnestly believing that the spaceship was going to appear, and it didn't. So faced with a situation and a scenario like that, where you had all this faith in something, and then it literally doesn't happen, that is probably the greatest, most damning evidence you could be presented with to say that it's not going to happen, the fact that it didn't happen. So you'd think all of those people would go, we were wrong, change their beliefs and change their approach. That didn't happen. In fact, the opposite happened. Those people became even more determined to spread the word of their beliefs, their cult, to the point where they actually started being even more vocal about it and came up with a few different ways of how they could have misinterpreted the data and proposed new dates and new dates and new dates. And of course, each time it didn't happen. But each time they became absolutely more determined that it was going to happen. We always to reason and rational. You might need to reword that. Yes, people don't like to be wrong. Absolutely, Tristan. People do not like to be wrong. It speaks to cognitive dissonance. This is another term you may have heard, big words, cognitive dissonance. Basically, when you're presented with something that doesn't match up with your worldview or belief, it creates a dissonance, basically a discomfort in your brain, not physically, where you go, this isn't right. And so the tendency then is to want to get away from that discomfort, that uncertainty, because we don't generally like uncertainty. And the best way of doing that is becoming even more entrenched in your existing beliefs and ideals. Yes, we always try to reason and rationale as to why things happened or didn't. Spot on. And we do this in a whole range of different ways, because we do you know what, next time I'm going to talk about the empathy gap, so I won't cover, I will pick up on that point and elaborate on it a little bit more next week, so tune in for that one. So sorry, I have weird notifications coming up that don't normally come up. Okay, let me just take a swig of coffee. So that's effectively what the backfire effect is all about. And one of the places you'll see it play out most is absolutely on Facebook comments and Facebook arguments when people disagree. And yes, Sarah, you make a very good point. Just scrolling past is a really good way of avoiding that kind of confrontation and situation. But it's true on a much bigger scale as well, and it's been exploited as an impact by a whole number of different groups and organizations and companies. So, for example, in the States, rallying and lobbying has been a big thing over there for a long time, and the tobacco company did a great job of this. The sugar organizations did a great job of this. Fossil fuels in relation to global warming, and Christian fundamentalism, creationist fundamentalism, in terms of talking about denying evolution and that side of things. And the more evidence that they're presented with, the more evidence people are presented with for the harm that these things can cause, for example, but they choose that they enjoy it, so that becomes more important. In the example of tobacco, for example, yeah, the more evidence they're presented with, the stronger they become entrenched in their current beliefs, because they don't want it to be true by this point. They've made a commitment, emotionally as much as logically, to believing. The key thing is, it becomes part of their identity, and that's what makes it so hard to just change it with logic, fact, and reason. So I've just explained this. Let me know in the comments, do you believe the backfire effect exists? Let me know in the comments. Have you experienced examples of it? Just a simple yes, or you can give me the example if you like. It'd be great to know if that's something that you have experienced, and if it's something that you believe that you believe in, or don't. Let me know if you don't believe me, because I'm open to hearing other sides of the story. I'll just give you a moment to fill up the comments. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Katie. So, yeah, going back to what I was saying, the tobacco company, the sugar companies, fossil fuels, and plenty of others have spent a lot of money funding campaigns to encourage that. So, tobacco companies will, in the past, I don't know currently where they're at with it, but certainly in the States in the past, tobacco companies would then slap big warnings on their packets saying, these will kill you, don't smoke them, and then put way more money and funding into sort of groups to go and spread positive propaganda about smoking and deny the science behind it. And because people like smoking, and this was being pushed at them and fed to them, they found stuff that supports what they feel is right, so they're more likely to latch onto that. Alison Mead, I see it all the time with eating habits. Yes, that's a great example. So here's the thing. A lot of research is still being done into this. And actually, there's a lot of people that say it doesn't exist. Ironically, despite evidence showing and supporting the idea that it doesn't exist and that it's not a real thing, people still believe that it exists. And there's people who have said, yes, I see it all the time. And you're probably thinking, but I see it all the time, so of course it exists. So here's the thing. I have looked at quite a range of evidence to make up my own mind on this particular bias, to present this to you and to look at the facts around it. Though it ties in with other biases, I do believe, yeah. So I was specifically not going to mention vaccinations and anti-vax in this live because I felt it was possibly a little too sensitive a subject right now. But yes, completely agree with you. A great example of it, to be factual about it, is the myth that's been spread of the idea that vaccinations cause autism. Let's be really clear, they don't. They absolutely do not. There is science and evidence that supports the fact that they don't. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that they do. There was one paper that was written once that claimed that they did. It was debunked, and the author of that paper, I think, was arrested, but certainly accused of fraud and making it up. So yeah, but yet it's still a perpetuated myth that's fed really commonly, and people don't care about the evidence against it if they really truly believe it. So yeah, great example. Thank you, Katie. Where was I going with this? Yes, so looking at the evidence, I think it does exist, but I think the scenario and situation is what matters. So people have this perception then, well, if backfire effect exists, if you can't convince anyone of anything, if they already believe something, then why bother trying to change anyone's mind? Just give up and move on. Here's the thing though, it only seems to apply in situations where the individual that holds that belief holds it so strongly that it's become a part of their character, a part of who they are. And this happens more readily and more commonly than you might realize. So for example, I'm an anti-vaxxer, for example. There you go. It's not, I don't believe in vaccines, or I believe that vaccines cause bigger problems. I'm an anti-vaxxer. Do you see how it becomes an identity thing? Like those cultists that I spoke about at the beginning, they absolutely had devoted their life to and their identity to this belief and this set of beliefs. So when that fell down, they wanted that comfort of something safe that they knew. They retreated, and it actually made their beliefs even stronger. And that's what the backfire effect is all about. The way around the backfire effect, and this is either the way around it if it exists to the extent that it's purported to exist, then this is how you can work around it. Or if it exists but not quite to the full extent, this is why the evidence shows that it doesn't exist, in my opinion, is people's opinions can be changed, but you won't do it by aggressively arguing against them and trying to force logic and reason at them. People's opinions, beliefs, and thoughts around things that they are that devoted to will change gradually over time, and there's plenty of evidence to suggest that that can happen. By when we look at the Facebook arguments, this is because it's just a great example of seeing all sorts of cognitive biases at play when people argue on Facebook. Approaching that by arguing, getting personal, being emotional about it, failing to have understanding for the other side and their perspective, all of those things are just going to push the other person away and make them fight back harder, which is going to make you, because of the backfire effect, do exactly the same thing and want to fight back your end harder and not listening to what they're saying. And it just continues to escalate. So the key is, one, take a step back, take a breath, remove the emotion from the situation, otherwise you'll be just as guilty as them, and present your facts in a calm and measured way. Even if it doesn't change that person's opinion right there, it may form part of them looking into it in a greater detail. It also may help people that are watching to look at it in a greater detail. And this is true regardless of what side you fall on any debate. There's right and wrong. Yes, absolutely there is. But there will be times when even if you're relying on evidence and study, there's still going to be times when you're going to get things wrong. So it's really important to keep yourself open to look at the other side, and by doing that, it'll be far easier for you to help inform the other party better as well. So that's what the backfire effect is. Simply put, the backfire effect is when presented with evidence that goes in the contrary to what someone believes to be true, that person is actually more likely to enhance the strength in their beliefs than change their beliefs. As to whether this exists or not, it's my belief that it does. There's evidence that it does, but the evidence shows that it's there in certain situations. It's not there across the board. It does, however, tie in with confirmation bias, which is another bias which I've already done a video for. So if you want to check that out, head to my YouTube channel. Just search Mind Affinity on YouTube, and you'll be able to find out more about confirmation bias, as well as many other biases as you look through the playlist. So if there's any questions, whack them in the comments. Next video, what did I say? I said I was going to be looking at empathy gap. So the empathy gap, which I will tell you all about next week, but it's related to this in some ways because it's all about, well, as the title empathy would suggest, it's largely about feelings rather than logic. So cheers everyone, thank you for tuning in. And if you've got any questions or thoughts around how we think, the way that we do, how we make our decisions, or you'd like to know more on a particular related topic, then get in touch and let me know, and I'll cover it in one of my videos. Also, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, you can find even more videos from the Mind Affinity Facebook page, and even more exclusive content only available to people in my Facebook group, which is Empower Yourself and Others. Just search for that in Facebook and you'll be able to find my group. Thanks everyone for watching. It's been great having you here, and I'll see you all next week. Go out there and have an amazing day.